All right, welcome in. It is episode 111 of the Three Guys Talking Ball podcast here. We have a whole lot going on. We've reached the final week of the NFL season. We're going to be going over the playoff scenarios. Should be a wild weekend of NFL football of who is in, who is out. We have a national championship game set for college football, and we're going to recap the games from the previous weeks here. And, we're going to start off with the Rose Bowl because the Michigan Wolverines are playing for a national title.
That they are.
What a game. What a setting. The way football should be played. It was knock down, drag out, bury your soul naked type of football game. In a classic with the sun setting over the San Gabriel Mountains, the college football's most iconic stadium. Michigan came out on top.
Dylan, football's most iconic stadium. Step aside, Lambeau. You aren't that.
Okay, good.
It's over. It's over.
Well, if there's somebody that thinks Lambeau is the most iconic stadium, that just shows how irrelevant they are and how out of touch they are because, well. And Stephen A. Smith, you can also put there too, because he also just said today, I think it was today, that they should be playing the Rose Bowl at SoFi Stadium.
Well, he's an idiot, and he should take a $5 million pay cut.
Oh my God!
He should take a $5 million pay cut a year for saying something so outlandish.
And do you know why he said that? I guess is so he could helicopter there and doesn't have to deal with traffic.
Oh,
just sticking your nose up that, I am better than you.
You elite ESPN personality. Get out of here.
He should not be the highest paid ESPN employee just for saying that.
No, it should be Pat McAfee.
Should be. That show's about to get taken off the air because one of his guests said Jimmy Kimmel was on the Epstein list.
Thanks, Aaron.
But
yeah. Honestly, how that show's even on there is beyond me.
Well, they had the counter for how many times and how many minutes on the air someone didn't say the F word when they made the switch. And Pat and his crew, they were doing great. And then he brought J.J. Watt on a Wednesday, and within 2 minutes, J.J. ruined it. And I think it happened 2 or 3 times in that same interview when he goes, God damn it, I'm not used to these regulations again on here with you, Pat.
Because I think he had it like 4 or 5 years ago. Really, when he took off, when he actually went to he was like he had a daily show.
Yeah.
And I think they were on like Westwood 1, and they got dinged by the FCC a handful of times. But back to the Rose Bowl here, and it was the first half. Michigan felt like they could have been up by about two or three scores, but they had a muff punt. They had a couple of times where they were moving the ball well and had a penalty or take a sack, shoot themselves in the foot, and then Alabama scored off the touchdown and got a field goal right before half, and it was a 3-point game. And then third quarter was pretty much turned into a bit of an Iowa game where it turned into more of a field position game, and Alabama took advantage of a short field off of some bad punting by Michigan. Their special teams was abysmal all day. Especially end of game, the muff punt earlier, the botched field goal. Thought it was the Quinn Nordine era of special teams at Michigan.
You made the Gophers special teams look good.
Yeah.
And if there's 2 things in the world that are the worst at what they are, it's Big Ten officiating and Gopher special teams.
Outside of the kicker this year, that's it. Everything else.
Yeah. Yes.
Well, I saw that their quarterback transferred to Rutgers, and I don't know if this is a good move because we all know how the last time a Minnesota quarterback transfer to Rutgers went. Grant, do you know anything about that? Do you know anything about that guy?
I pray to God Athlon is over 21 years old, and someone at that bar is home with their 8 month it's at home with someone whose wife is 8 months pregnant. That's all I pray and ask for.
Yes, and now that's twice now we've gotten off track here, but Alabama is up 7, and it was not looking good. It was the here we go. It's classic Michigan choking in the big moment. The pain, misery, suffering never ends, and I was not good. I was getting all sorts of texts, people being
Dylan,
very cocky.
can I say something real quick on that, Dylan?
Sure.
You messaged me when Alabama was going down when they were up 17-13, and they had a couple nice runs where Michigan was missing tackles, and this is when I saw the first sense of doubt in you. You go, they're missing tackles. This was a fun year. It's over. And I was going to be my best to be your emotional support animal, and I said, nope, they got to dig deep, like those winter workouts. You never work harder in your life than you do in college football. Hang in there and make a play. That's why you work so hard in February and March when it seems outlandish for games like Monday.
Correct. And the defense holds. They got a sack that pushed in, and Alabama's kicker, Nick Saban just wasted the best kicker he's ever had in his time at Alabama in Reichert.
Did he win a national title as a freshman during the COVID year, Reichert?
He might have, but it was the COVID year. And we'll count that one because they beat Ohio State.
They beat Ohio State.
Actually count, yeah. So that national title, there's some exceptions to the rule that they were Mickey Mouse championships. Sam Houston's spring FCS title over South Dakota State, the Bucks Chiefs Super Bowl.
Ethan would argue. Well, no, the Bucks were the definitive champs there. That's not a Mickey Mouse title.
No, I'm saying that that was some of the exceptions. But the Lakers Dodgers championships, those don't count.
Yes. And Ethan doesn't count the Gophers COVID year either. Correct, Ethan?
No.
I don't count the Michigan year, so
we only count UCF's national championship.
Oh, get the fuck out of here.
And we would have counted Florida State if they would have actually beaten Georgia or showed up or at least showed some sort of a pulse, which part of it was Michigan defended Florida State's honor by being an undefeated team left out. And I right before that drive, I texted you, Grant, and I said, time to go be a legend, JJ. I tweeted that out. And he etched his name into Michigan lore, leading them on a 75-yard drive. And it was right the final that final drive is like I just decided I'm gonna record my reactions and see. And there's a good one of me doing the surrender cobra on the fourth and 2 Corum catch when Roman Wilson got the
rub route.
No, it wasn't the rub route. He got the block in the back.
Oh yeah.
And then there's also I should post that onto our YouTube. And there's a good clip of me calling him a dumbass because he was.
Classic.
Wow. That's so
and
mean.
I am just telling the truth. It was a very dumb thing of him to do, push a guy in the back.
And he redeemed himself.
Luckily they had enough yards that it didn't matter. They still got the first down. They were still at midfield. Go down, score. JJ McCarthy has an incredible throw, which watching it live, it looked like it was tipped. And I saw the tip, and I'm like, no, it's going to get intercepted. And then all of a sudden, Roman Wilson comes out of the nowhere, catches it, and gets down closer to the goal line. And then
Dylan,
showing it again, it was like.
Dylan, on that note, JJ must have spun that as hard as he possibly could.
Oh, yeah.
Because that ball, it was tipped, but it was still that tight spiral, and it was humming along. Had that been a week 8 pass against Purdue, that's going the other way.
Yeah, that it was, and that's the only reason it wasn't. Because it looked like it was tipped, but you have to have a pretty good set of eyes to realize it. Because it hardly ever broke a spiral at all.
Yeah.
And
actually, looking at the replay, Dylan, had it not been tipped, it may have been intercepted because he would have maybe thrown it a touch farther than what he should.
It could have been.
You never know.
That just speaks to the arm strength he has too.
Yeah.
Cade McNamara, as much as I loved Cade, he doesn't have the spin on that ball. There's not many quarterbacks in college football that can. The guy that Michigan's going to be playing in the national title has that type of spin, but not many after those two.
It's certainly not Burrow.
No. And they go score, and then you have to sweat out the extra point, and then the final sequence, the punt, which I have no idea what was going on, and then they kept taking timeouts, which made no sense, and just to kneel it, I was like, what's going on? Let's just get to overtime. Then it gets to overtime, and then Blake Corum breaks the all-time rushing touchdown record at Michigan with that run.
Who did he break,
And
Dylan? Was that Mike
It was
Hart?
Anthony Thomas.
Okay.
Anthony Thomas. Anthony
Okay.
Carter was a receiver. But he was actually one of the original number ones, the famous number one to wear receivers for Michigan. And then Alabama gets the ball back. And Milroe had a nice run that got him a first down and got it to first and goal. And then on second down, huge play by Mason Graham, who was the Rose Bowl defensive MVP, breaks through, gets a tackle for a loss, and then third down, they get it back to the 3. One of the only plays Jermaine Burton made all game, who said that once he gets on the field, the only thing he's going to be thinking about is death.
Was it death or was it murder he was looking at?
Murder or death? Yeah,
something along
his
those
college
lines.
career is dead, so his college career was murdered. So game mattered most. The team that always makes these plays in these situations is Alabama. The team that always loses it is Michigan. And you can question the call, but I think, Alabama had trouble with snapping the ball all game. And McLaughlin, I'm not sure if it was it had to be in his head. He had to have like the yips or something, but that snap on that fourth down was a bad snap, which looking at it, in which everybody is speculating the RPO that they had, it was a good play call, but Milroe panicked. He didn't have much time, so he just took off and run. And Michigan's D-line, like they did all day, stepped up to the task, clogged the hole, didn't let him get through, and Michigan is going off to the lovely, wonderful city of Houston.
I definitely don't think that was an RPO. I think that was designed QB run. The D end actually went out like they wanted them to. He had a lane. If he would have looked to his left, he would have walked in. I saw a video on Twitter.
A low snap like that just causes everything to just go in panic or chaos.
He had a lane for sure.
Yeah. But yeah, who knows? To your point, maybe he could have gone left, but then if he would have liked it, he could have thrown it too.
Right.
But you see the stuff going around the internet, Dylan. To your point, he dumps it off to the left-hand side. It's 3-on-2. More than likely, he walks into the end zone. And then at that point, does Alabama go for 2, or does Saban kick the extra point and say, "Let's play on"? I'm just curious.
I think Saban kicks it.
Yeah, I think he kicks it.
I do too.
It would have been curious if Michigan scored with like 10 seconds or so less. I would have been curious to see if Michigan would have went for 2, try and get the ball back.
You see, with how dominant, how dominant, Dylan, for me, their D-line was all game, and how really Alabama couldn't get a consistent offense going. Would they have 270 yards in the day? If I'm Harbaugh, I'm trusting my defense, and I'm kicking.
Yeah.
It's not like you're a huge underdog, and you can't go up against these guys.
Yeah,
guard was so bad.
I think maybe because they missed the kick, and then
that's true.
Botched the snap on the PAT. That's kind of where I was possibly thinking maybe they just go for it, don't let it go, be in the hands of a kicker. But it worked out, and Michigan has plenty left to play for. They can certainly play a lot better, and they're going to have to against a really good Washington team. Which let's go to that game. It was, I don't know, it felt like a weird game to me where Washington led the whole way, but it never felt like I thought Washington was in total control just because it didn't seem like they were able to run the ball. Texas was still moving the ball at a good clip, but they would, they'd have some penalties. They'd turn the ball over. And Texas was just sloppy, nervous, and, to Washington's credit, they did a good job of executing. They, a lot of deep balls. And defensively, Washington did a good job of keeping Texas behind the sticks. They won on first and second down, making it obvious passing situations for Ewers, and They didn't get the run game going until later, but when they did, they were still averaging 7 yards a carry. But the self-inflicted wounds were a little bit too much. Penix was sensational. I think he should get serious, and if it was up to me, I would take him with the number 1 pick in the draft. I like him over Caleb Williams. I think he's got more intangibles than Caleb. I mean, Michael Penix, was first 4 years of college, he found himself injured, and that's probably one of the deterring factors as to why he isn't there's more discussion about him being the number 1 pick. But I also think there needs to be a lot to be said that the last 2 years he's been at Washington, he has stayed on the field. He has played well. And that's a credit to him putting in the work in the offseason, is building up his body and developing a game from the pocket, not relying on his legs as much, where he's turned more into a quarterback who can run rather than a running quarterback. And then at the end of the game, just the unfortunate injury to Dylan Williams, which gave Texas 47 seconds instead of what would have been about 20 seconds. And Texas went right down the field, and Sark actually called a really good play at the end there, that if Ewers actually throws the ball where it's supposed to be thrown, we're talking about a Texas-Michigan matchup instead of a Texas-Washington matchup. But the great play by the defensive back from Washington, and and you give him his credit, and we have a matchup, a national title matchup between Michigan and Washington.
Well, yeah, and I think you just with this Washington game, the reason why I felt confident in Texas going into the game was I thought they were better up front on both sides of the ball. And when Texas got the ball running on offense, they were, and they didn't let Washington run the ball all night. But that Texas pass rush just was not there with the athletes they have. Up front with Sweat and Anthony Hill Jr. I thought they could get after Michael Penix. And let's not kid ourselves here. This Washington offense is an NFL offense. With the concepts they run, the speed they have in their quarterback, you can't cover guys for 4 to 5 seconds against this Washington team. If you do, you're going to be in trouble. And Texas learned that the hard way. What did Michael Penix finish with? 449 yards.
It was something like that.
I think it was like the second most in a semifinal game, like of all time. And I don't care what you're doing. Anytime you let a quarterback throw for over 400 yards, you're not going to win that game.
And on top of that, they went over for 100 rushing yards too. So it wasn't like they were just straight up one-dimensional.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
yeah,
they moved the ball at will. And even, in the second half, when they settled for all those field goals, they were still moving the ball, and they were deep in Texas territory. Texas's defense finally had enough and finally showed up and, made a play. You wonder if Texas was out in Bourbon Street a little too much, on New Year's Eve, and they had a little fun, and they were like, oh, yeah, shoot, we got a football game to play.
29 of 38 for 430 yards was
430. Okay.
Penix.
I knew it was 430.
And it was, it was late. It was a late game. I was glad that game didn't have to go to overtime, but those last 2 drives defensively where Texas moved the ball and then in the red zone, unable to come away with a touchdown. If Texas is able to come away with a red zone the possession before, all Texas has to do is kick a field goal there.
Mm-hmm.
But Washington, their situational defense has come up big all season long, and it showed again in the Sugar Bowl here.
Well, and Dylan, like I told you last week, coming into this game, my biggest key to the game was Texas's red zone offense. They only scored a touchdown in 44% of their drives this year in the red zone. Or was it either 44% or they were 44th in the country? That's not going to cut it. That'll cut it in the Big 12 when they can have a lot of big plays, to Adonai Mitchell, Xavier Worthy, before Jonathan Brooks got hurt, and Sanders. But when you're playing a national championship caliber team who's beaten Oregon twice and won on the road at Oregon State and won a tough game at home against Washington State, that's not going to happen. It came back to bite Texas in the butt. And then those 2, second half turnovers, just drive killers.
Yeah, well, that one that their last turnover that they had, it was one of those most bizarre, like bizarre turnovers I've ever seen where they ruled him down and then they show the replay and he was juggling it for about 5 yards.
Yeah.
And the Washington player, you could see it was like, no, he was not down. You need to challenge that right away.
Yeah.
And they did, and they got it. But
Dylan, also one thing I noticed, I'm going to go back to this Michigan game real quick. One thing I thought was really smart for them to do was just not line up in your classic Michigan, one back, two tight end set, one back and a full back, and try to out physical Alabama. Because for the most part, you don't do that. And in the first half and in the second half, when they were get going, it was 11 personnel, 2 wide receivers, 3 wide receivers. They were spreading Alabama out. They made Alabama play with 3 defensive linemen. When Alabama shut Michigan down, they put 4 guys, 5 guys down the line of scrimmage, and they said, nope, JJ, you have to beat us. But when Michigan kind of spread them out a little bit and Alabama had to cover, and they could only have 5 guys in the box, it was to their advantage. And now I'm going back to the second game. You could see Texas was doing that to Washington, and that's when they were getting those 7 yards of carry. So I look for Michigan to do the same thing. Continue to kind of try to spread it out, but keep this power game going where you have a light box and you can just lean on these guys and hopefully wear them out in the second half.